This video is sponsored by Craftsy, but more on that a little later. So today I wanted to talk about 10 knitting adjacent crafts that you could get into this summer if you're just feeling like you need a break from knitting. I mean, it could be any time of the year, but I always talk about how in the summertime I want to set down my needles for some other crafts like crochet or sewing. Those are my two usual go-tos. But those are kind of obvious for knitters. I feel like those are the top 3 crafts to do. And if you knit, you probably do one of the other 2. You probably crochet or you probably sew. You might do all 3. And you might do some of these other things that I'm going to list in this video. But I wanted to kind of like jog your brain and share some things that I've done in the past. And I'm actually, now that I wrote it down on a list, I think I'm going to prioritize a couple of these and get myself back into them because thinking back, I did have a lot of fun. So without further ado, 10 creative outlets to get yourself into when you're tired of knitting. In no particular order, I'm going to read off this little list that I just did a little brainstorming session and thought about some of the things that I really like to do when my knitting mojo is zip, but I really want to exercise that creative muscle. The first one is puzzles. And this one can be really cheap. I will say at the beginning of this, when I say something could be pretty inexpensive to get into, I think the caveat is that all of these, any hobby can be made really expensive if you really get yourself into it. I mean, knitting itself doesn't necessarily need to be an expensive hobby, and yet we spend lots of money on our yarn stash, on our needles, whatever, all the little bits and bobs that you need, quote unquote, need to have in order to knit. Take it all with a grain of salt. If you really get into the hobby, you might be spending a lot more than what I'm saying here. But to just test out the waters, a lot of these can be really inexpensive. So I've really been into puzzles recently, and it's just a really nice way to make something pretty, but kind of have no extra skill required. All you really need are eyes and hands that work, and you can easily make a puzzle. It's a group activity that can be a lot of fun, but it is really fun to do all by yourself. My husband doesn't like to do puzzles, so I am a solo puzzler, and I really got into this last summer, and I actually just fell in love with it and made quite a few puzzles myself. This can be really, really inexpensive because I was just at some yard sales recently and saw a lot of puzzles going for only a couple of euros. So if you wanted to just test it out, see how you feel about puzzle making, you can easily get yourself into it. I would say that your normal 1,000 puzzle goes for about 30 euros. And I mean, that's kind of equal to a night out or, like a nice dinner somewhere. So I think that can be considered a little inexpensive, I wouldn't say that it really breaks the bank if you really found a puzzle that you love and you find that you really enjoy the time to sit down and build the puzzle. And at the end of it all, what I have done with some of the puzzles that I've made is actually put glue on them and put them in a frame. And it's just an extra way to add a little touch of personality to your home. And to display the thing that you spent a lot of time on. The thing that I really like about puzzles is that you can kind of get yourself lost in it. And you're just trying to find pieces. And it's a really meditative way to just clear your mind, very similar to knitting. It does require a little bit more mental energy, but not as much as you might think. And if you don't feel like it at the end of the day, if you just kind of force yourself and then get into a groove, it's really relaxing and it's not a lot of work. That is one thing that really keeps me away from my phone. It keeps my mind and my hands engaged and my attention engaged enough so that I'm not constantly checking my phone, which I can't always say the same for knitting. Embroidery, quilting, painting, baking, what do all of these have in common? You can learn all of the basics to pick up these hobbies right now as a member of Craftsy. Craftsy is an online community where millions of crafters find inspiration and advance their creative skills. It offers more than 2,000 exciting classes that are easy to follow and led by friendly, award-winning instructors eager to share their creative wisdom. I recently saw a class about sashiko embroidery designs and techniques by Beth Bradley and decided to sit down to watch it. I have a quilt project that I left behind a few years ago which desperately needs to be picked up. This class gave me the courage and the inspiration to turn it from a UFO to an active whip in my rotation. Are you stuck in a creative rut? Craftsy can get your creativity moving again. You can even connect with fellow makers to share ideas and get inspired. Plus, as a member, you'll have access to Craftsy's live streaming tutorials where our experts share tips, answer questions, and engage with the community in real time. The first 1,000 of you to click the link in the video will get a full year of premium membership to Craftsy for only $1.49. This is valid for new members only. Thanks, Craftsy, and let's get back to the video. Needlepoint. Now, the first time I discovered needlepoint, I was visiting my parents' new home, not the place that I grew up, so it was a new area to me. I was looking for yarn stores, and I came across a store that's dedicated to needlepoint. And let me tell you how horrified I was to see how expensive needlepoint patterns are. And I just don't know why. It doesn't make any sense. And I'm talking like hundreds of dollars. People spend hundreds of dollars on needlepoint. Just the pattern. Not to talk about the yarn, but that being said, I have found kind of reasonable prices for needlepoint. I think it's a really nice thing to do though. Even though it is really expensive, it's just like coloring with yarn and very similar to punch needle in that way, which we'll get to in a few minutes. Needlepoint has all it requires is some wool and the pattern and a darning needle, and you're in business. I have worked on needlepoint projects. I have not finished one. I really have been meaning to. It is, again, really, really relaxing, and it's not difficult to pick up. It doesn't require a lot of skill. Pretty simple to do. The only thing that really hangs me up about it is just how expensive it is. If you're interested in needlepoint, you might want to consider punch needle instead because I think it is a lot less expensive. The only thing that you would really need is a canvas and the punch needle itself. You could definitely use some of the yarn that you already have on hand if you're a knitter or crocheter. You probably have plenty of yarn that you could set aside for a special punch needle project, and it wouldn't really cost you a lot right up front. You can go large scale with this. I've made a really small scale punch needle, and I will insert the kit that I did. I actually purchased a kit from somebody based in Australia or New Zealand. I can't remember off the top of my head now, but I really enjoyed the art style. She makes beautiful pieces herself. To sell, but then she also sells kits that you can make, and I really enjoyed her style. I thought she did a really nice job explaining how to do punch needle. Again, this is not something that's very difficult to pick up. It's really just coloring with yarn. So punch needle and needlepoint both have that coloring book feel to it, which I didn't actually include coloring in my little list, but that's also another great one. This one is really inexpensive and kind of addictive. So natural dyeing. I got into natural dyeing a couple of years ago. I was taking some white yarn that I had and I dyed it up with avocado. I dyed using onion skins. There are so many different things that you can find in your pantry. You can take old bed sheets, you can take yarn that's in your stash that's not really being used for anything, and you can give it new life. And you can find a lot of resources on this, a lot of free YouTube videos that you can watch. I will even link the one that I made a couple of years ago here. I did two. I did one with avocados and I did one with red onion skins. Those are my two favorites. Those are like the two most common things I think to dye with when you're first getting into it. And it's really exciting. Even though you know exactly what color is supposed to come out, you making it yourself it'll just be brand new in your eyes. It'll get you all kinds of energized creatively when you dye up something using what you have in your pantry. It's really fun and addictive, and I highly, highly recommend you get into it because then you can go on foraging expeditions and find all kinds of other things that are suitable for dyeing. You can do dandelions. I really enjoyed this because it's like magic, you know? It's something, you take something that is like a blank slate and then you create it and repurpose it into something new. The thing that I really loved about natural dyeing is that it's taking a blank canvas and then making it into something extraordinary, almost like magic. It's something really fun to do in the afternoon. If you're looking for a quick weekend project, this is definitely one of those things that you can do. again, with a lot of the stuff that you already have on hand. This takes a little bit more preparation, admittedly, but it is a lot of fun. It's a great skill to learn something to do with your hands. Pottery is great. I actually have a kit that I was gifted for Christmas. My husband gave me a little pottery date. Admittedly, I haven't cracked it open yet. We haven't found the time to do it. It's something that you can do at home, but you do need a lot more tools and to invest in something. But if you get a kit like this, you have everything that you need on hand to create something small. Also, I would encourage you to look at little art centers around your area. Where I used to live in the States, there was an art center and I took pottery classes. It is an expensive hobby, but it is something that you can completely immerse yourself in. Wheel throwing is such a cool skill to learn. And when you bring home your first thrown piece, I made a couple of coffee mugs. I use them. I've also made plates. We use them almost every day. It's just amazing to be able to have something so useful in my life that I have made myself. I like to have that little reminder, and pottery is a really great way to do that. Lego building. Okay, I was a doubter. I have to tell you, I was a doubter about Legos. I thought it was kind of like, why? Why would you do that? Why would you spend your money on that? I will admit to you that that is exactly what I was thinking. But it actually is a lot of fun. Really, truly. It's a great way to sit down. And again, I just love doing stuff with my hands, as you can see. I love being able to build things with my hands and to use it. It really does take all of my attention. It immerses me in something. It makes me feel creative and accomplished when I'm all done with it. And, you know, Lego, again, you're just following instructions, so you really don't need a lot of skills, but you do feel proud at the end of it with whatever it is that you've created. We've made Japanese gardens. We've done little botanical ornaments that you can bring around the house. I've done some flowers, and then we're working on little succulents now. It's just something fun to do really quickly. It only takes a couple of hours. If you just have like an hour or two that you want to kill, you can crack open a Lego. And I've been on Facebook Marketplace a lot. There are Legos being sold. All you have to do is just disassemble them. Usually people sell them completely assembled, and then you can take it home, disassemble it, and find the instructions. I think they have them online. I will admit that I've never bought it secondhand, but we have been looking for certain sets. So it is something to consider, that you can find these things secondhand. And honestly, there's no problem with that. I'd actually, if you're trying to see if you'd get into it, I think that's the better way to go. But if you want something that's a little bit more curated, a little bit more aesthetic, there are those booknooks. So there's little wooden miniatures that you can make, either booknooks or other little dioramas that you can do. They are all over the craft stores recently, at least around me, craft stores. And also there's a place called Nature Découverte. And it's kind of just like a nature store. I don't know how to explain it. It's like a brookstone, but also more on the natural side. It's really hard to explain, but it is a really cool store, and they have hobby and craft things in the back of the store. And that's where you can find puzzles and these kind of book nook, other kind of wooden things that you create. Those kind of things are also all over my Instagram feed. People just love things that are tiny, and these are a little bit more complicated. I have had all the best intentions to get into it. I will admit I've never gotten into it. But again, this is like around 30, 40 euros to buy a kit like this. And then I assume that you have everything that you need to create it. So as far as like a one-off activity, it's not really all that expensive. Again, if you're making things, if you're making these kind of miniature things on the regular, like my husband, he also has been getting into painting figurines. That can be a little bit more expensive to do. But then again, like once you buy the paints and the brushes and all of the sets, the glue and everything, it's really just a lot of purchases up front, and then you can use it for multiple different types of figurines or miniatures, whatever it is that you're making. So I would suggest giving it a try, just knowing that that's a little bit more of a commitment. The next one is painting, and I will admit that I am not really that great at it. I don't really know if it's for me. I don't have any techniques. I can't really give a lot of advice there, but I think this is probably the one thing where you do it and it objectively cannot be wrong. You have the most leeway with painting. It can be it's just a creative expression. It can be anything that you want. If you put brush to paper, you're creating something, you're creating art. So this is probably the one where you don't have any rules and you can do it. This one and pottery, I would say. Those are the two where objectively you cannot do any wrong, and it's really just a form of your creative expression. And I think that's really beautiful and a lot of fun. Painting can be really expensive. It can also be really cheap. I've seen watercolor kits for €10, so that's really nice and easy to start up. And you can also find pretty cheap acrylic paint too. Once you start getting into it though, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, I need to get the really fancy brushes. I need to get the really fancy paint. But again, that's like with every hobby. My intro to painting was a $20 drop cloth, part of a $20 drop cloth, a couple of pieces of wood, and I nailed that all together and then got some acrylic paint and started using paint brushes that I had on hand from painting my house. So this is definitely something you can also find around your house. I'm sure you have some things that you can already get started with painting. This is not really a crafting hobby, but I do feel like you might be into it, okay? Hear me out. This can get expensive, but upholstery and flipping furniture, that could be a really fun thing to do. It's definitely not a cheap thing to do. And once you get into it, it could be really expensive. But, you know, to try and give new life to something, that really energizes me. And I haven't done upholstery per se, but I have gotten quite a few finds on Facebook Marketplace and kind of given them new life. I have plans to do that as well. Taking old furniture and doing what you can to give it new life is really fun. It's not necessarily a hobby, but maybe it is. I don't know. It's a lifestyle. But yeah, I'm actually sitting on a chair that I would love to upholster one day, but I did a little quick fix and maybe I'll share that with you in another video. But yeah, go on Facebook Marketplace, find something small, find a little chair and make a knitting chair. It's fun. Like searching for old furniture to flip on Facebook Marketplace could actually be a hobby in of itself. Okay, I kind of jumped all around my list, so I'm looking here, and the last one that I have as like a new hobby would be jewelry making. And this is something that I have no experience whatsoever. I am assuming that it's really expensive because I have not even looked into it. It's just an idea that you could get into. I'm not really a jewelry type person. So I don't really wear jewelry all that often. I only wear my wedding ring and then this necklace that literally never comes off my body. So I'm just not really a jewelry person. So I've never really wanted to get into that kind of hobby. It's just not for me, but I do think that it would be a lot of fun, to do because again, it's working with your hands, creating something beautiful. I do think that knitters could be really into it. Or, you know, just thinking about it on the spot, maybe not jewelry making, but like you can make your own stitch markers and other things and progress keepers to help with your knitting, to just do a little project that you can also use in your knitting later on. How much more fun would it be to be using a stitch marker that you made yourself when you're knitting than some that you just bought from the craft store because you needed some, you know? That's actually a good idea. I might actually be into it now. Other things that I had in terms of knitting projects, just a suggestion, if you're not really feeling into your knitting right now, maybe you just need to knit something different. And what I'm talking about is not like a new garment that you want to cast on, but just picking up a completely different new project, like a new style of project. I'm recently casting on a stuffed animal project, and I find that every time I make one, It's not my number one project that I want to do, but every time I make one, I just get so excited because it's so cool. It's just a completely different way of using my needles, and it is really inspiring in that way. So maybe to really force yourself to get out of the habit of knitting garments if that's for you, or if you knit accessories, maybe knit something else that's a bigger project that could just get you a little bit more inspired and take you away from the ordinary for your day-to-day knitting experience. And of course, I mean, that's not to say that sewing and crochet are not really good projects to do. I just feel like that if you're in the knitting space, you're also kind of crochet curious, sewing curious. So I feel like those are the two obvious ones. Sewing garments, sewing quilts, or other household items. That's a really fun thing to get into. Again, that one is a little bit more pricey though if you're not already into it. The price of a machine can be quite expensive, but again, Facebook Marketplace is a really, really great tool. A really great place to be. So I hope you enjoyed some of these ideas and they gave you some new inspiration, maybe some new excitement around crafting, something to look forward to at the end of the day when you have some free time. Maybe change it up a little bit and see what you can do to, just get curious, learn something new, try something new, and at the same time, just give your hands a break, give your normal routine a break, try something different.